Well, joining me now, the Democrat pollster Celinda Lake from Washington, D.C., and the Republican strategist and pollster Frank Luntz, who works continually with focus groups, and he's here in the studio. Let me just start with you, Frank, because I heard Trump this evening speak of the massive electoral disadvantage he has. Do you think that's right in mathematic terms?
In the off-year elections, Republicans have the advantage because of who turns out to vote. The polling numbers don't matter. It only matters whether you actually make it to the polls. In an on-year election, the Democrats start with about 240 electoral votes that it is almost impossible to move. And he has, quite frankly, deteriorated so much in the last 10 days that it is going to be a serious uphill climb if he is to make it close on Election Day.
Celinda, so the Democrats must feel they have this sort of comfort ring of what we call the blue wall if she's already on 240. What do you make of polls like Utah and Alaska, which almost look like they could be in play?
Well, we've actually polled for the Utah Democratic Party, so I would tell you that Utah is very much in play. These are idiosyncratic states, though. Utah has a heavy Mormon population, a religious group that Romney was part of that really despises Trump and has from the beginning. Alaska, very libertarian, legalizing marijuana, and Gary Johnson has some real appeal there. But there is no question that Trump has put into play states like Arizona, Georgia, South Carolina that have not been in play before. I think the interesting question is what happens down ballot. I think the presidency, while not to be taken for granted, and my good friend Frank Luntz is absolutely right, the Democrats have to keep focused on getting their vote out. The question on the table is what happens underneath? Where do those disaffected voters go in the Senate and the House races?
Split ticket, presumably. What about postal voting, early voting? I mean, how much of the voting do you reckon is done by the time we get to November the 8th?
Overall, about a quarter is done ahead of time. And some states, it could be 40 or 50%. There are a couple states like Oregon, which is a Democratic state, which votes 100% by postal ballot. But make no mistake, the election has already begun. The voting has already begun in essential states. And even though Donald Trump did relatively well, and I use that term relatively, in the last debate, his negatives are so high and the hostility towards him so great across the country that he's going to need an absolute, I don't want to use a home run because this is a British audience, but he's going to need, if you can help me with cricket.
I could do a poker, an inside straight,
That's
right?
Perfect. I didn't know you were better. That's what he's going to need. And the states you have to watch, Florida, where she is now up, Pennsylvania, where she is now up, and Ohio, where he is even. There's only one state, Iowa, that he is still leading that is a traditional Democratic state.
I mentioned at the end of the piece, Celinda, this idea of the shy Trump supporter. We in this country are very sceptical now of pollsters and how right you get things. Is it possible that we've just overlooked this, that there is a very good ground war or a passion that replaces a ground war that could carry him through?
Well, there is no ground war that will carry him through. In fact, his grassroots organization is in shambles. And there is a very good ground war on the side of the Republicans. But you're right, there are two things going on. I happen to believe in the secret Trump vote. And in all online surveys and robo-poll surveys, he does better than in-person surveys, particularly among women. I don't think women at this point want to admit that they're voting for Donald Trump. Although one could ask, how could any woman vote for Donald Trump? The other thing is who's going to turn out to vote. There are enthusiasts on the Trump side who will turn out to vote, but Democrats have a great grassroots organization, and we're going to fight to get our millennials out, our unmarried women out, and our people of color out.
That's really interesting, though. If there is a big female vote that doesn't admit to pollsters that they actually quite like Trump.
But I've been challenging it, and I'll give you a specific. There are very few voters who are undecided now. They're uncommitted. The difference is undecided, you're going back and forth between Clinton and Trump. There's almost none of those left. The uncommitted say, I will not vote for her, or I will not vote for him, but I haven't decided, I haven't committed to a candidate yet. She is winning the uncommitted vote by 2-1. They tend to be women, they tend to be younger, and that's an opportunity for her. Just one point, however. The working class voter, which has been the bulk of the Democratic support for the last 20 years, Trump is still doing better among them than most Republicans ever do. And that is the only thing that he's got left that could put him over the top.
So would you still call the Republicans the party of the right, Celinda? Or has all that, if you like, disappeared now?
Well, we would call the Republicans the party of the wrong. Yes, they are the more conservative party, and that hasn't disappeared. But in presidential politics, it's also a lot about character. It's a lot about temperament. It's a lot about who's qualified to lead and whether you have the character to be president. And in the end, I think a lot of women in particular will ask themselves two things. Is this man a bully? Can I let my daughter watch the President of the United States on TV? And do I trust this man with the nuclear codes?
Well,
and I think that's
key.
3 check marks against him.
Frank, last question to you. I want to come back. Is one of the numbers we haven't talked about yet turnout? I mean, what do you think this is doing to political discourse and how willing people are to, you know, just spend the money on the bus to go there?
It's giving everybody a headache. It's making everybody feel like the child of divorced parents who doesn't want to live with either of them. Make no mistake, her negative ratings, while not as bad as Donald Trump, 53% nationwide have an unfavorable opinion of her. That's never happened to a Democratic candidate. It's just that 63% have a negative opinion of him. And Celinda's right. It is about character. That's what matters. If Trump had gone away, if he had been locked in the Tower of London jail for 100 days, he would have been elected because the election would have been all about her. Now, as you hear Celinda saying, she's not defending Hillary. She's attacking Trump. If it's about him, he loses. If it's about her, she loses.
So they should both shut up right now.
And God help us all.
Okay. Thank you both very much indeed. Thanks.